Urgent rescues now still happening in Japan from Monday's earthquake there, a massive 7.5. These are before and after satellite images there of some of the damage following that huge earthquake. The disaster has killed at least 73 people. We should say more than 70 have been rescued, but there is a number of missing that still remains unknown. Seismic energy released during that quake traveled across the surface and through the earth, actually registering on the seismographs here in North Carolina. NASA Ambassador Tony Rice joining us now to break some of this down. So, Tony, is it rare for North Carolina to register an earthquake all the way in Japan?
Well, it isn't for an earthquake this large, and that's the key here, is how incredibly large this was, 7.5. And we've seen some of the aftermath there and the deaths that we're seeing and the tremendous destruction. So something that large can travel that far. And you can see in this graphic here how far it was traveling. That's the Great Circle distance, that black line there. And it was picked up in Pittsburgh. There's several dozen seismographs in North Carolina. There's several thousand across the globe. And scientists use these seismographs to determine where these earthquakes are occurring. And we can also even tell a little bit about how the Earth is made up. We can see inside the Earth use them. NASA's used this even on Mars to measure earthquakes there, or in that case, Marsquakes. So the graphic you're seeing right there shows that the earthquake continued to be registered here in North Carolina for several hours afterwards. And that's one of the amazing things as well, is the Earth rings like a bell as those seismic waves not only are felt that first time after several minutes, it makes its way across the surface and through the Earth, as you mentioned, but it will also reverberate off the crust and continue to shake for several hours afterwards.
Of course, around the world, we're studying this seismic activity, especially in areas where we know there are faults and where we see large earthquakes in Japan, for instance. When there is one this large, though, we have to be able to learn, as you were saying, a lot more on a global scale. Tell us a little bit about what does this tell us about North Carolina when we hear or we feel this type of activity from the other side of the planet?
The earthquake that we felt there, of course, was in Japan, and that was along a fault line in Japan. And what's happening there is a tremendous amount of energy, stored energy, held energy is released all at once. And that's what creates that tremendous shock and even aftershocks afterwards. We can see those same things in North Carolina and have seen them recently. Our fault lines aren't as active, of course, as those along the Pacific Rim, but it's definitely something that we keep an eye on. And the reason there are so many of the research seismographs around, the one that is shared on WRAL.com in the story about this is from a USGS seismograph, but NCANT, NC Central, they also have research seismographs. So this is something that is at the forefront of a lot of earth science studies that are going on.
All right. As Tony was mentioning, hop on WRAL.com to learn more about this story. NASA Ambassador Tony Rice, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.